Hey guys, I'm Lady M. I'm the voice behind the videos. I figured I'd turn the camera around today and give you guys a little bit of scenery here. Because I'm not the type of person that put a backdrop up and do all that extra stuff. So I wanted to make this a secondary video of a little bit of what we didn't go over, what I left out of this card. I knew that was going to happen because it's so jammed-packed with imagery that sometimes I go off on a tangent and then I just forget. So one thing I want to go back on, because when I was in my internet travels reading books, I don't remember where I saw it. I think it was in an internet article that this is actually not an Anubis. It's a Hermanubis, which is a god that was created in Rome. It is half half Hermes and half Anubis, basically. So that makes a lot more sense to me if you paid attention to when I said that the dog head on the man represents us ascending from animal to a human being. Basically, our consciousness, how our consciousnesses are different, how our consciousness gets elevated. So it is a mixture of a wolf and a man because it's talking about coming out of our animal nature and ascending. Also, I didn't talk about the water symbol that was on the bottom here. We talked about mercury, we talked about sulfur, we talked about salt and what that is about the soul, the spirit, and the body. But what is the water then? Well, what the water symbolizes emotion, just like it does in the tarot. But what's really important about alchemy is they reiterate this through everything that I've read, is the attitude of the alchemist, and that you must have the curiosity and the excitement and the ability to believe, such as a child. So it's very important to bring that attitude of wanting to learn and wanting to explore wonder and experience wonderful things beyond this realm, as opposed to gaining knowledge to hoard it or to use it as a power over people, because knowledge is power. And one of the worst things that we do is we hoard knowledge. And that's one of the reasons why I felt like it was so important to start making these videos, because I feel like the way that I understand things is a very specific way. I'm very literal. So if I can be that for somebody else and maybe have them come to their spiritual awakening or their understanding of these things a lot quicker than I did, then we're on our way here. Because we're all ascending, and in some way we're all reaching and striving to get better. Also, what I didn't tell you is that Typhon, the serpent, in mythology, his body, the way that he's built, represents being highly conscious and then being like bound to earth, because his feet are the bodies of serpents and they have hissing heads, and he's like the most terrifying creature, supposedly, in the Greek pantheon. He's the only one that's a monster and a god at the same time. His head is also touching the stars. And then the snakes, I talked about this, I think, in the lovers, not the lovers, I think it's the Two of Cups with the caduceus and the R complex, and how the snake crawling on its belly, also we can consider that like being bound to earth and being an earthly creature and being kind of stuck in that R complex of the brain, which is the reptile complex, which acts on fight or flight, and it acts on its desires. So it's very egoic. So I think that was it for what I left out, but I thought, like, because when I was like, this is an Anubis, obviously that's what you think when you look at it. It kind of fully didn't make sense to me, but now the mixture of dog and Hermes, basically the most enlightened human being that ever was, is that mixture of us being able to live so hard in our egos and never try to ascend, or we have that ability or that want and that need to ascend. So I think that's really cool, and that's something to think about. All right. So some of you bitches don't have a floor-to-ceiling library in their house, and it shows. I'm kidding. Someone asked me for book recommendations, and it was really hard to kind of narrow it down because, as you can see, we have a lot of books here. A lot of this side here is my astrology, tarot, alchemy, and all kinds of other stuffs that I like to read about. And the other side's my husband's stuff. But so the first one is The Path of Alchemy by Mark Stavish. Something really cool that I came across in this book regarding the number 10 card, the Wheel of Fortune. It's on page 20. I'm going to read it to you guys really quick. And they're talking about the elements here. They are united in their common source or spirit, symbolized by an 8-spoked wheel. The spirit is a primordial form of energy consciousness that is utilized in magical rituals as well as alchemy. An 8-spoked wheel. So that's what we're looking at here, an 8-spoked wheel. It's the duality of each element. So that makes 8 because we're looking at 2 sides of each element. And that's the very big secret, is that we're not just dealing with a 1, we're always dealing with a 2. Even with one human being, we are part female, part male, part man, part God, basically. So it's talking about the very breakdown of things. And this leads me to believe that this is a drawing of what the spirit would look like, because your birth chart also looks like this, and your birth chart represents your karma. And another interesting thing is, in astrology, the main cross that's in the middle is called the cross of matter. And what's interesting also is the symbol for earth is that as well, the circle with the cross in it. So the cross of matter, which means we are shoved deep into matter, and we're put on a cross, basically, because we have to deal with our desires and our sins, basically, and being washed clean of our sins by paying back our karma on this cross of matter. So we all have this hard lesson and this hard thing that we have to do in life, and everybody's path is different. So my cat just jumped on my lap, so she'll probably appear soon. But and that's what the suffering is. And just like Jesus is like our one of our biggest archetypes. Also, another thing that I came across is the 10th rune in the Elder Futhark is Naudis. And I don't know the exact way to pronounce it because I do a lot of reading and I only really heard it pronounced in chapters and books. But it represents needs and how we are driven by our needs and how we suffer and the things that cross you. So the cross always represents something hard and something deep. When we get into the hangman, he hangs himself on a cross, but he's doing it willingly. All right, so, okay, so the 8-spoked wheel. And the spirit expresses itself in 2 forms, one active and the other passive. So again, there's our clue about the duality, the male and the female. The active principle is the male and the passive is the female. So it's so deep. It's so deep. You have to really look into, like, if you look into the first 5 cards of the major arcana, you're going to see them split up, the male and the female. And we talked about that multiple times through this series. Okay, so let me just keep going. The Path of Alchemy, Mark Stavish. The reason why I like this book for alchemy is because it's very practical. It's very modern. It doesn't have, references from the 1400s that no one's going to fucking understand or know what the fuck you're talking about at this point. And we don't want to read stuff that's steeped in allegory. We're trying to find out what the fuck it is. So this is basically a really, really, really good book. It has experiments that you can do with very accessible things. You don't have to have like beakers, and you're not turning lead into gold. It's basically you're doing plant alchemy, and it's separating the plant body from the spirit and the soul of it. So we're separating the salts from the sulfur and the mercury, and then we are heating them and letting them cool, and heating them and letting them cool, and that's what separates the 3 elements from each other, basically. So the reason why these experiments are important is because you relate them to your soul. If you don't understand that you have a spirit and a soul, you really need to look into that. that's a whole nother thing. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime. So that's my favorite alchemy book. You're going to need to be savvy with numerology. If you're not savvy, just get yourself a book. And this gives you the Arcanum, which is like Arcanum 10, which would be the card that we were talking about today. So it gives you those. It gives you the tarot keys, and it also gives you the numerology meanings as well in a separate part of the book, which I love. I think this is great. This book also has 8 and 11 switched. It's not like the Rider-Waite. It's like the Thoth deck. Or Thoth deck, however you want to fucking say it, where justice and strength are reversed. But basically, what I'm finding out is that's a very old concept. I thought Crowley changed it, and I think actually Waite changed it for some reason. I don't know why, because Crowley has it in there as justice as 8 and strength as 11. So I don't know, for me it makes sense the other way around, and maybe that's just because that's the deck I learned on, but I really do, from looking into it, the older concepts have the 8 as justice, and then strength afterwards. So, I don't know, it's just something I still have to meditate on, and if I ever have a breakthrough about it, I will definitely come on here and let you guys know. So this is Numerology, Key to the Tarot by Sandor Conrad, with 2 A's. Conrad, if you can see it. All right. This is my motherfucking shit. This is my Bible, Tarot and Astrology by Corinne Kenner. If you get any of these books, get this one, because this was the most helpful to me. It really was. It gives you a guide to all of the astrological associations to each tarot card and more information about astrology and how it relates to tarot. You can see I have notes everywhere. This was just such a great read for me, and I use it all the time, because who can remember all of that information? Just remember too, if you don't have all this information memorized with tarot, if you still need aids, you could still do tarot readings for people. Another thing that I really love is, I think it's called, hold on, let me check my phone, because I think it's called Golden Thread Tarot. I might be Galaxy Tarot, sorry. I really like this app, Galaxy Tarot, and the Galaxy runes as well. That's what I use. When I do my readings, I do 3 cards and 1 rune. The rune is the overview of the reading, like, hey, this is what this shit's about. And it helps, especially if the 3 cards aren't clear as to how they're linking to me or how I should relay the message. So Galaxy Tarot and Galaxy runes are it for me. When you look through certain books and certain things, you're going to see certain people put different meanings out. I like these meanings. They resonate very much with me. They're very similar to the things that I've chosen to be like my guides. All right. So yes, Tarot and Astrology, Corinne Kenner. I got it on Amazon. It's amazing. I highly recommend it. And then this is like, these are like your books, and I would say it's practical, because you're going to be reading about stuff that you're doing with your hands, with your cards. You're going to, you know what I mean? You're trying to do readings, and then you're looking up the meanings and all that stuff. This is theoretical. This is the theory. The Kabbalion. Really easy read. It's thin. It's cheap. I really highly recommend getting this. If you have about 5 years in of reading tarot, you really need to delve into these concepts, which is universal law. And I remember reading this and being like, thank God I have a working knowledge of occult stuff, because I think it would have got lost somewhere. But it did. It opened up a whole nother level in my brain and made me think, and, you know, you relate stuff to certain cards and you're like, wow. And I think that's really how we learn, is by association. How we associate things is a huge, you know, aspect of how we learn. So that was my video for today. Finally, we can move past this. Y'all know who I am. Y'all know what I look like. Also, a good guy to look up on YouTube is The Modern Alchemist. Again, it's very hard to find information that you will relate to in this age on alchemy. I think a lot of people are coming out now with it, but I'm just letting you know the things that I found that really resonated with me. I love the Modern Alchemist channel. He's got a whole series of lectures that he did, which I really, really enjoyed. And it's the kind of stuff that's so jam-packed that you'll go back and watch it again and you'll catch stuff that you didn't remember setting off a light bulb in your head, like that type of thing. You're like, oh. So yeah, there's a lot of information that he has out there that I always go back and revisit. And no, I'm not going to link it. Google it your fucking self. Not even Google it. Put it in on YouTube. He's going to come up, The Modern Alchemist. All right, so that's it for today. And I will see you next time when we talk about the Justice card. Have a great day, guys.